All right, so let's go make sure audio is working good. Let's go through and do what any rational person does. And as soon as something is working, break it, because as one does. So we're going to go back to the course class, and we're going to add a couple more things. We're going to leave for the moment these properties, okay? But we are going to allow, we are going to change how we're doing encapsulation. So set access specifically, we're going to set that to private. We're going to do a couple more pieces here. So we've got this part is already starting to do some error handling, so this is okay. We're going to make sure, yeah, so if end, okay. So we've got enough of the right ends in the right place. Yeah, methods, end. That one goes all the way down to 49. Okay, yeah. All right, so that's okay. Yes. And okay. So I'm just making sure we know which line things are on. If the number of arguments are 3, if, else if, and number of arguments for the if. Yeah, so this one can be tabbed in. All right, so that's a little less confusing. That's the end to the function, so that should be at the same level. Okay, all right, so that part's reasonable. So we've got our check waypoint. Okay, what if we want to then give more usable information than what we've had here for the user? Well, okay, how could we do that? All right. There's a couple things. This we're going to suppress. C name, C level, C waypoints. So that all we're going to suppress. We're going to make sure all the stuff is suppressed that we can. So that goes to methods. This goes to class def. So under this methods, before the method ends, so still just after that function, we're going to do another function. And it's going to be a special case of a display for C, because the user needs to be able to see what's actually going on with their device. So we need n to be the size of the number of elements in C. We want to suppress that because we don't need to know what the number is. We don't care. We just need it to read it. To isArray, we're going to assign n greater than 1, lowercase n, meaning this is going to give us I think this one gives us gives us just a value So it's a Boolean, meaning if is array, now that we created that as a Boolean variable, this is using the display function. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some info. So this is a joiner to give us some specific spacing and include a number and a space on either side. And then instead of print line, we're going to use a new line for this. And that's if it is an array. If it's not, then we have to do something about it. So often that means some kind of, typically a for loop. I'm going to use k as the index for this. 1 to n. For k 1 to n, we're going to start with a number of elements. K is 1 to n. So start with a number of elements. So this function is going to need its own end. Get rid of our major compiler error we were headed for there. So start with the number of elements. How do we get that? Start with a number of elements if is array. We're going to use another function that we haven't talked about. So str is, we're going to assign to str k, but converted to a string. We can't really do that completely by itself. We have to include we have to include a plus and then space. So a string plus a space. This is going to make sense when we actually go to see what the display output looks like, and we'll cover kind of some more of the parameters there. Otherwise, blank. So otherwise blank, and we end that if. So otherwise blank. Okay. Now we need to do another thing. So what are we doing here? We're going to make a display string for each of the elements. So what does that look like? If is empty determines if an array is empty. If yes, then something else end, so that we don't have our forthcoming compiler malfunctions. If is empty, we are going to use str for this, but if is empty, and the data set that we're checking for emptiness is going to be c at index k dot waypoints from our data set. So if waypoints is dropped in empty, then we append to string string at k, or we do str plus, so we're adding to this empty course. And then displaying now. Why can we get away with this? Is something that could confuse the OCD people absolutely to death. We don't have to call this display. We could call it display course or something. So there are other ways that we could define this. Because this is being used locally within this class, but still going to be accessible, so it's going to be public. We know what this is going to be, and it's making use of the built-in MATLAB display function. So it's a class object rather than a MATLAB built-in function. So it's a different category, but has the same name. You can have different things stored differently because they're different category. You can't store two of the same thing, same category, same name. I hope that's clear. Go back and listen to it again if it's not. So we're going to display the string. Otherwise, we need to build the rest of the string information with course info. So string is str plus. Now we have to append all this other stuff. So c at index k dot level plus space course and we're going to add, this is a waypoint or a name in a single quote is next. So you'll see again, c at k dot name, because we need the name plus our single quote so that the name ends up bracketed in single quotes. Now we're going to do another cool MATLAB trick. we're going to do ... continue this on the next line, and this is going to allow us to continue with num elements c at k dot waypoints. So it's guessing we're going to need waypoints based on the kind of data that we're working on and what we're doing with it, plus the string and now we end that, suppress the output so that you can see everything all on the same line, or all on two lines. Display string, display c at waypoints. All right, so display these two values. All right, so this now gives us, in our function here, we don't have full, complete, total lockdown protection, but at least with some of these parameters, we've got all of the functions in. And this one that we've added down here is a custom display function that allows us to, assuming there's an array, display the text array of value of n courses plus new line. So array of might be 5 different courses. So array of 5 courses. On the next line, it'll print either an empty string, or then it will come down here and say empty course, or it will say string plus level. So it's the string array of these courses, and then string of the number. So this is a whatever level course, the name of the participant with, and the number of waypoints and text waypoints, and then display the string and waypoints. This gives us more depth and function to the course. So we're a little higher in terms of our total line count now, but we've got what we need in there. So ID sticks, we're going to need a similar kind of display arrangement for this one, but we're going to go back up to the top and make sure that we've got our access level and therefore our encapsulation to be correct. So for the ID sticks, what we're going to want to do is we're actually going to want to set a couple of these separately. So this is specifically going to be set access, and immutable there's going to be a few options. Immutable is basically something that cannot be changed externally by any method. I thought there was a section of the write-up on immutable. It's kind of like sealed. Yeah, but it is not. So, no. Okay. So, set access immutable is a thing that's completely unchanging. You can't mess with it. It's not something you can do and deal with. All right. So we need to define other properties, and they need a different encapsulation. So access equal private. So some things we want the users to mess around with, some things we don't. In this case, it's just going to be status. That we want. So status we want to be private. This one these guys, timestamp participant course. These we want to encapsulate as set access because we want users to be able to input these. So set access gives us some containment of what these are and don't allow them to be just altered by anyone and anything. It's only within this class definition and all of these functions that we're going to be able to mess around with that information. So it's going to lock down the information and make it so that not everything is 100% public the way that works. So the information that we pass into the function is going to mostly stay contained within the box. And we're just going to get outputs back out. For this, that's going to be okay. That's going to be acceptable. The ID stick, there's one more that we need to include in order to validate must be and numeric. So not numeric or logical. Not numeric or logical. But we want to make sure that it's numeric, that it's an integer, and that it's positive. So if these three conditions are not met, and some jerkwad tries to put Chucky in this ID stick for whatever reason, because they're the people that vote turnip in elections, that's how this can get pretty messed up. So this is actually building the array. So that we know what this is doing later when we come back around to understand what these things are doing. And this is where we would build our this is where we're going to build the display function for ID to display ID information. So we need to have a few pieces in place. So what does that look like, and what does the display need to do? Well, it needs to it needs to build a display string and add participant and add the participant. So how do we do that? So we'll use K as a simple index again. So probably do an equals sign there. Keep from creating extra issues. Number of elements in ID. So same kind of logic here. str is going to be, in this case, we want it to tell us something useful. And then I'm sure everybody would love to have an ID stick that was just money, but we don't actually trade in Republic credits in this sector. IDK, ID at K participant, and you need to include the spaces where, when, and where you need them. This is actually going to be one that we're going to use inside of a this is actually going to be under an else, but we're going to need another if else end here. So in order to just build the string in the first place, we need ID stick number plus IDK dot, and so this is str equals ID stick number, and it's the serial number that we need. So I should pay attention to, we're going to need participant, who is, so this is going to change, serial number. This is where if the participant info is available. So if this thing, ID at K participant comparable to an empty string, then do this. So add to string they're not registered yet. So this is the next piece of the string that we want to add to, and then display string. Okay, the else case is where we're going to do not the stick ID. I clearly need more caffeine. Somehow I'm still on second coffee. Not real sure how that math works. Trying to bring you guys meaningful examples here. String so is registered to, and then the participant, and then who is, and then for this part we're going to do a little switch case. So we've seen those in MATLAB. So we're going to do an else. This is going to tab, this is going to tab, this is going to tab. So our switch case. Why do we want a switch case? Because we have three statuses, and that's what we're going to use as the trigger for this. ID at K status. Based on this status, we can name the case called ready. We can name the case called running, and we can name the case called done. So the case called ready, assigned to string, string plus something like ready to run course. This one we assign to string, string plus something like running now. And of course, here we assign to string plus finished with, and then the ending of this string because we still need to be within this if statement. Display the string, display ID at K dot course, which is, it knows, referencing the display C object. So when we feed it objects, it knows to use our display function. When we feed it just data, it knows to use the built-in function. So object display, normal MATLAB display function, and those two can work side by side. Again, we want to be careful with our naming, careful with understanding what it is that we're doing here, but at least this gives you an idea. So this closes out that display ID function and gives us some of what we need. So now we need to make sure register has all of the details that we need it to have. So it's taking the name, storing to participant, taking the course, storing C to that, storing the time to timestamps, storing ready to the status, calling signal and end. So that one is okay. The function ID for check waypoint. Let's make sure we've got all of the things here we need. So these are by clearing or by controlling argument data type in these. By controlling these, it allows us to make use of the input, but also does some light error handling by the argument type, because MATLAB knows what to do if we try and feed this a 12 by 37 uint 32 array or something like that. So, or a matrix in that case. So we used update status. We weren't storing. One of the problems we ran into is when we called update status, we were trying to store it to values, but we didn't have these values stored in the way that the function output its information. So we changed that in the function definition and solved that issue, because this is where we had a problem that came up. Calling some of the data in course, but the problem was actually here with our update status function. So that one is now repaired, so we don't have to worry about that. We've got our conditional arrangement to check if it's okay, yes or no, because this is a Boolean value, and the number n is greater than 1. So we have checkpoints. And this gives us a couple of different options in terms of how we handle the details. So we've got our timestamps storing data. We've got signal, and okay, so that part is all okay. Going back and checking real quick to make sure stuff is suppressed where it needs to be. All of these guys need to be suppressed because we don't need it to print out. Yeah, so those are that one's okay, those are okay. All right, that's properties. Okay, so we're okay there. Signal, this is where we want to be careful. Check waypoint. All right, so signal. Okay, let's verify. Yes, register we've done. This one, check waypoint, we've just validated. Signal is where we're at. This one, the methods, we don't want the signal to be tampered with from external sources. So we can also control access to methods just like we can to properties. We haven't done this in practice a lot, just because reasons. This one we're going to do in order to keep this from interfering with lots of other things. So we're going to go down. If ID status, ready or done, single beep, else. This is a fairly compact little function, so there's not much to do with this. We've got our displays working. That'll output back to the user. All right, so update status. Let's go through this guy with a fine-tooth comb one more time. So ID OK and IDX are the outputs for the function. Very important. If you're going to call a function and have it have an array of 3 outputs, you need to have an array of 3 outputs. Otherwise, you'll get a mismatch in agreement of arguments, and that's the error that we received. So I'm glad you guys got to see that as an example and how to troubleshoot it. because stuff does happen. Okay, so we have our list. We have our waypoints stored to the list. We have number and everything else go to the IDX. There we go. We've got a status for error or done. Then it's okay set to false. Otherwise, if the ID status is ready, then it checks if the index is at the beginning, then it sets status to running. Okay. Else, it's going to set okay to false. So this is going to be checking for a later waypoint. And then we have our is empty. If that's not true, so it's a double negative thing going on. And then ID status is done. So there we are actually in pretty good shape. So we're going to go ahead and save this. All right, so now let's try some different evaluations. Some of these evaluations. What we're going to do is I'm going to make use of the breakpoints in order to make these work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here and I'm going to run section until it gets to this breakpoint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit run that section. So it creates the waypoint here. And I'm going to step to the next one. So now it's going to do course. So I want it to continue. So I want to run that section. Yeah, so we're going to step. We're not going to do step in, step out. We're going to just do a step, which is going to run that. So we have our properties. Yeah, so it went through and ran the whole thing. I'm going to do the step and see. So it got us properties. So we got beep, beep, and buzz are the outputs there. So ID stick, we're going to step through that one. So ID stick, there's no output on that one because we've got it suppressed. Actually, I'm going to go through and I'm going to unsuppress these. So I'm going to stop and go back. So that you can see exactly what this is doing at each step. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to step. Clear. CLC setup W. All right, W is this. Step. Course. error in the CK level, I think, because that's lowercase. See, it's always dumb stuff. Right here, CK dot level uppercase. Blah, dumb stuff, always. This is why we step through and look for issues. So solve that, and we go back up here and we step clear CLC, setup W, call the course, store the information. Okay, set up the ID. Okay, ID stick. Now it says which is not registered yet, which is what we want. So that's pulling from here because the participant name hasn't been stated yet. So we could go back and rerun that ID after we've added the person's name. So we step properties ID, serial number, timestamps, participants, course. So even though in ID stick we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, serial number, we can see that one. Status we can't see in this group because we can neither read nor write to status externally. So the only thing that you can read and write to are we set access to private, and so we can see and read those things, but you don't get all 5 anymore. So that's doing exactly what we told it to do. Now check waypoint, display, ID stick, and register. That's the methods because we set to, so we have ID stick, that's 1, display, that's 2, register, that's 3, check waypoint, that's 4, signal, that's 5, update status, that's 6. But out of the 6, only those 4 methods are accessible within ID stick because that access to these methods is private. So the signal, update status, those don't show up. Those last 2 out of the 6 don't show up because we set those methods to private. So that's also doing what we want in terms of encapsulation. That's what we asked it to do. So now we set C equal to this information. So now we have double diamond course, greatest class ever, with 3 waypoints. So we should probably add a space after the with, but that's fine. Little baby stuff. Now we register a user and we say, so this is now, that has, is registered as Aiden, who is ready to run. So he hasn't started yet. Now we update the waypoint in the next step. All right, so Aiden is ready to run, and I think we should get one more output. Okay, so it looks like he completed the course. This one should actually be 42. So every time we put breakpoints in, we run Okay, so now, yeah, so it updated correctly because of the running now. So there's still one area of error handling in regards to inputs to check waypoint. Specifically the check waypoint under course that has 2 arguments. No, the one under ID stick, which has 2 arguments, not the one under course, which has 3. So within this one, we don't have a robust we don't have a robust handling inside of this function. So that's the one major area of weakness that we would need to improve. So that would be the challenge, is for you guys to take this idea, this concept, and see if you could fix that check waypoint function to where if you put in a waypoint, like you plug it into a machine on the wrong course, it'll tell you, hey, you're on the wrong, this ID is registered to Aiden, who is now on the wrong course. Please go back, or something like that. Yeah, Aiden, who needs to find a park ranger, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. That at least gives you a reasonable approximation of what these kinds of projects are going to do and how they will work and interact. So there's a lot of info here, a lot of things. When we're done, we're going to take out all of our breakpoints. We can return, we can set these back to being all suppressed and just do the last waypoint check. Okay. Properties and methods. Honestly, these two we can even comment because we don't really need them anymore. And if we don't include them, we get much less info in the command window. That way we'll be able to get a better idea. So what it did is beep, beep, beep. So this should now get to a final state where Aiden is finished running or completed the course or something like that. But I think we have to do a couple more waypoint uploads in order for that to be the case. So anyway, this will give you a pretty good idea how to put together an example of code that addresses some kind of real world problem that then allows for the solving of a challenge or something like that. There's a lot of different approaches that can be taken, but you guys need to make sure that you're following along, make sure that you get it written up in your copy of MATLAB, because that's the only way that it's going to start making sense, is for you guys to get some experience out of this. So this will conclude the lesson for today. We're going to work on the CLC projects and some of the last couple assignments for things. I'll look and make sure that we've covered kind of all of the broad spectrum of things that you guys need to in MATLAB. This goes way farther in depth in object-oriented stuff than any of the classes I ever got to take. So you guys are getting to see a lot of really powerful tools and techniques. So hopefully you guys will appreciate those.